saw something on the course he'll never forget.
It's a bird, it's a plane, it's, well, no one knows. Unidentified flying objects.
Clues are emerging this morning on just what, if anything, is living in Scotland's famed Loch Ness.
This week, the FBI released big documents
Mythical, legendary, and elusive chupacabra. I kid you not.
Hey guys, this is the man they call Dave. Welcome back to a new episode of Unknown Territory. Our episode on ancient aliens and the artificial moon had to be pushed back because KVK had stuff he had to do. So instead tonight we get another special guest host coming from all the way from Saratoga, New York. Into this studio is DeamonBlack. And we're going to be talking about some unusual cryptids. Why don't you say some highs?
Hi guys, this is DeamonBlack here. It's nice to be back on the show again, Dave.
Always like to have you on the show. So what do you want to talk about? You said you had a couple of cryptid stuff you wanted to go over. I had a couple of things. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this is kind of coming off the cuff, but we wanted to deliver to you guys. We wanted to deliver a show on time this weekend, as I promised. And
Yeah,
you
we
said
don't want
you
any
had
shortcomings.
Absolutely. And DeamonBlack always delivers. So, you said you had a couple of cryptids to talk about? Because I came up with a couple myself, too. Why don't you lead off?
I think my favorite cryptid to talk about are skinwalkers, wendigos, shadow people, but I've talked about shadow people before. So that was the last episode I did with you. But I think wendigos and skinwalkers are a very interesting topic to discuss, as they've been talked about through a lot of Native American Indian lore. And it's very weird how many stories and everything. And I read a lot of stories and heard a lot of stories from, like, little shout out to like B Busta. I've heard some from Lazy Masquerade, all inquiring the same thing.
Good creepypasta narrators.
Yeah,
very good
ones. Very good ones. And if you viewers that are listening to this channel too want to check them out, they're always for a good time and great stories. They have amazing ones. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that the one thing in common that skinwalkers and wendigos have is they always call out to the person in somebody that's familiar to them or a voice that they've heard. And it's usually trying to call you out farther away from probably a party group that you're with, or if you're by yourself and the one thing you should remember, like if you hear your mother's voice and your mother's not with you and it's out in the woods, chances are she's not really there, you know?
Well, wasn't there also a myth on the Wendigo specifically about how it was this a beast that if it cannibalized, Native American, if it cannibalized another human, another Indian, it would become a Wendigo, retreat to the forest, and it became supernatural, and it would capture people, and it would begin to run so fast and grab its victims to the point of which their feet would burn off.
Yes, that's a very true. Account for a lot of people talk about their feet burning or as if they're being dragged up into the sky.
Yes, that's old Native American legend though for the Wendigo or Wendigo as they call it.
I think my favorite story about the Wendigo is it takes place probably during the 1800s, and it's a fur trapper who has an Indian guide who is showing him around, and the winter's getting, colder.
Do you know what tribe or what area it's from?
I don't know. I can't read the story. I read the story so long ago. But the story goes like this. The trapper has the Native American showing him around, and all of a sudden they make camp for the night. What happens next is the wind starts buzzing and howling, and the Indian starts hearing his name out in the forest, and he starts to shake.
Now, not to interrupt you one last time. This is all I want to ask. Am I remiss by saying this does have something to do with an owl being seen first, calling a name, or is that a separate myth?
That's a separate thing. If an owl calls your name, it can mean a couple things. One, if an owl calls your name, it means death. If an owl calls your name, it's also an ill omen. It's never been discussed about whether or not it's directly linked to a Wendigo sighting.
Okay. I promise I will not interrupt you anymore. I thought there was a connection there, but go on. He started to feel uneasy.
I mean, you could be right. I mean, but these are only the things that I know.
No, I think you're actually correct. I think I might have mixed up my legends.
It's all right.
So the Indian was out, and he starts to get the shivers. Go on. I will not interrupt.
The wind starts blowing, and it's snowing and howling, and the wind, the fire begins to crackle pop. The Indian starts hearing his name, and the trapper is like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And the Indian wouldn't answer, and the thing continues to call his name, and the Indian gets so scared he runs off into the night, screaming, trying to get as far away from whatever this is as possible. And for some weird reason, the hunter's only hearing the wind, but the Indian, DeFeo was his name. The Indian's name was DeFeo. And for some odd reason, DeFeo keeps hearing his name, but the trapper doesn't. So the latter of the story is...
So he was marked for death, only he could hear his own name.
I think, yes. So, which isn't uncommon, because sometimes there's these things that can, supernatural beings can call out your name, no one else can hear it, which makes it even look like you're going crazy. So... he runs off into the woods. The hunter goes after him and starts to look for him. He keeps calling his name as the wind is blowing and it's howling, and all he can hear DeFeo is like, "Oh, my feet are burning. Oh, my feet are burning." And he hears this, and it seems like it's getting farther out in the woods and farther away.
So that's what I mentioned.
In the end, what happens is the hunter sees that there are tracks, but the tracks look like that they were being dragged up into the air.
So the tracks just disappeared out of the snow.
Yes. And there's like a small burn mark or burn mark into the ground a little bit. So meaning that the Wendigo has taken DeFeo and has eaten DeFeo. Now, Wendigos are also known as, when they don't eat, they start eating their own flesh as well. And until they find somebody. and then when they eat the flesh of that person, their flesh returns because they're actually like wearing the strips of skin from their the person that they've taken.
The previous victim.
Yes.
Another
creepy thing about Wendigos is that they seem to mimic voices that are familiar to the person that is related or is a friend of that person.
Yes, you did bring that up earlier.
Yeah, and they practice them too, which is really weird. They don't always get it right. Like there's still some sort of malformation in the voice, but it sounds pretty close. So like when the person's being called that you think is calling you, it sounds like they have a cold almost.
So it's so close, but it's not quite right. It's almost unsettling. It sounds like them, but it's not quite them.
Right. Which is very interesting because, I've read a lot of stories where people actually run into the woods to go save whoever it is or find out whatever it is, and, they end up dying, of course. But then there's other people, and I've only read these few accounts that are really smart and realize that, wait a minute, this person isn't with me, or why would they be out there? And I don't know if it has something to do with a trance thing or if that voice is just so powerful that it just calls to the person that thinking that they lose all reason and they go running out into the woods.
Well, there's a term, when they find these bodies, I believe it's called hypoxia. No. Hypoxia is when you're running out of air. Paradoxical undressing. That's what it is. In which they will be so cold that they feel warm and shed their skin, their clothing over their skin, and they'll just bolt and they'll freeze to death. And this is something that can possibly be attributed to the Wendigo myth as well of, oh, this person, because their feet are black, looking like they were burned against the ground, but in essence, it was just hypothermia, turning the skin black. There's so many different ways, so many different theories, but the Wendigo myth is one I've always really liked because I am 50% Cherokee, and I know the Wendigo isn't part of our mythology, to my knowledge. But I've always found these Native American myths to be just totally fascinating. Do you have anything else to add to that?
I think actually these, and I may be crazy because, I'm also a skeptic, but, I've gone through so much stuff, especially when we were kids. We've seen our fair share of things.
Yeah, we have.
That, I do believe that that these things exist. I was starting to think of, if you remember the one story of where our friend Brian was out in the woods and you thought you heard my voice walking around, and
Didn't
you called out my name,
story
but nobody answered. Huh?
Didn't I tell that story on a previous podcast?
I don't think you did. No.
Well, I'm going to save that one for a creepy story time. A creepy, true story time.
Because out in out in the golf course there, that area, there's a lot of weird stuff that happened, and especially in Plotterkill, where I used to hang out all the time, my voice was heard there too.
That was another strange occurrence.
Yeah.
All right, we're reaching about the first break, and we're going to be right back for this Unknown Territory mini-sode. We covered Wendigo, and we can get into some creepy shit real soon, ladies and gentlemen. So we will be right back. And we're back with Unknown Territory with the man they call Dave and DeamonBlack. Now, I got an interesting story, which is going to lead into the last topic of the night. Phantom noises. Things you hear in your house that you can't explain. Now, I have a dog, and I believe I've explained that before. He's a Great Dane Pit Mix, and he's annoying, but he's a love bug. And 3 cats upstairs, because I just previously moved into my new house. It was around 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was in and out of sleep. And it happens to me a lot. And I just woke up to the loudest bang I could possibly imagine. Scared the ever-loving heck out of me. Sat straight up in bed, walked right out of my room. Dog's dead asleep on the couch. Nothing's moved. No doors are open. But it was the loudest bang I've ever heard. And so I tried to test stuff around the house. And we have a back door that leads downstairs to the basement and out through sliding glass doors into our backyard. And so I tried slamming that. Identical sound. But we never leave doors open. We never leave doors unlocked. And I still have no way to explain it. And then 2 days later, my fiance, Amanda, who has been on the show before, her bedroom is upstairs. While she was sleeping, after I had told her about the bang, she heard a bang of her own. We have 2 giant bookshelves in our office room that we have upstairs, covered in books. All the books flew off the shelves with the exception of one. It was a book about ghosts. And she swears by it. So if any of you listeners out there have any stories, please go to unknownterritory@yahoo.com. Send us your stories on mysterious noises, strange sounds. And now we welcome back DeamonBlack onto the air.
Like poltergeists. Poltergeist, sir, in German means loud spirit.
Yes, it does, actually. Welcome back.
Hello, how are you? Phantom noises. Are you telling me that books flew off the shelf and there was only one with about ghosts? Is that what she said?
Yes, because we're still putting up books. We're still in the process of unpacking.
Right. That's an all day. That's been like a month job so far.
Oh yeah, that's for damn sure. But every single book was strewn around that office bedroom or office room. We turned a 3rd bedroom into an office. They all flew off. I was dead asleep when this happened. I never woke up to it. But there was only one book left on the shelf, and it was a book about ghosts.
I told you your place was haunted when you had me go in.
Yeah, well, every place I have is haunted.
Yeah, but every place you have me go into,
You're
I
breaking
tell you
up a
whether
bit.
it is or isn't. Can you hear me now?
Little bit.
Sorry, my reception's a little bad here, folks.
Nope, there we go. Got you back. You're back.
So anyway, I guess the next thing I'm going to talk about a little bit before Dave talks about some of his stuff.
I already talked about my recent things. You were talking about strange encounters, strange noises. Do you have any of your own?
Do I have any of my own? Well, before my roommates moved in, I used to live in this house by myself. It's a raised ranch. And I would hear weird noises all the time. Now, one of my roommates and I figured out that some of it was pipes. But we could never explain the boot prints that were embedded in the rug, and it wasn't from any of us. And they would always lead out the back door. We could never figure out whether or not somebody was going into the house or there was a spirit here. I actually do believe that there was a spirit here at one point, but since I've been saging my house regularly, either it's paralyzed and asleep, or it's gone. But my
Well, now you do consider yourself mystic, correct?
yeah, I'm a mystic.
Okay, just for the listeners' sake.
Yeah, I've been practicing since I was 16, maybe a little younger.
You don't know who's listening and if they know what sage actually means when it comes to something like that. So it's good to explain.
But I always believed that sage, with certain spirits, either just paralyzes them. It doesn't null them completely. So it's like a quick fix to a long-term problem sometimes. Not all spirits are evil either. But a lot of shows that you watch, they always talk about bad spirits.
Of course, they always have to focus on the negative.
Of course. But yeah, so anyway, I'm getting off topic. So the one phantom noise I've had happen to me was back when I lived in Latham. My mom owned this giant house, and she was married to a saxophone player at the time. And I decided to go down in the basement, and I'm sure you know about that basement, Dave.
Yes, I do.
I just did an EVP one night, so I left my recording down there. And I went back down to the basement after maybe like 24 hours and brought the recording with me to school. I had a talk boy, believe it or not, to do this.
I remember those.
For those of you who don't know what a talk boy is, for some of the younger viewers out
the
there,
millennials.
It was that thing in Home Alone. It was a handheld cassette. It was pretty cool. You could either speed up your voice or slow it down. But anyway, there was this loud phantom, like poof noise, but nothing banged. We didn't hear it in the house at all. It was nothing. It was crazy. And it was only it was an hour after or maybe like 15 minutes into the tape. And I remember playing it a few times to a few friends in high school. And it was crazy. That was one of the biggest phantom noises I ever heard. A funny story, I'll tell you viewers, is that I used to throw parties at my father's house. And one night, Dave.
Oh, I know about this story.
And our friend Jake were there. And we kept smelling what smelled like ladies' perfume. And
it smelled like roses.
Yeah, for 4 hours we were trying to figure out where it was coming from until I ended up moving closer to this scented thing my father had, and I smelled it and I pointed to this and I go, it's that. And we were starting to think there was a female ghost in my dad's house. It was pretty funny.
Well, that's not a phantom noise. That's just a funny story.
It was pretty funny.
All the things we believed when we were younger.
Oh my God. So yeah, that was pretty funny. I had to tell that for a lighthearted note. But yeah, so those are some of my stories. I mean, and I know I was going to touch base about skinwalkers. The only thing I really know about skinwalkers at the moment is they kind of are like Wendigos, but with a weirder fact. They kind of walk like humans, but it's almost like picture what you'd see.
Well, as far as I know, skinwalkers, could be shamans. Like one topic that I really, really want to touch about in a next episode at some point is Skinwalker Ranch. But you can explain.
I don't know about Skinwalker Ranch.
That's something I highly suggest you look up. It's so interesting. About all the paranormal activity that happens there.
I'll have to take a look at that. That's interesting. Wow. All right. But yeah, no. Skinwalkers basically almost kind of did the same thing Wendigos do, except for a weirder fact. They try to walk like humans, but picture, if you will, you know how you see movies with ghosts where they kind of do that twitching weird thing that the computer animators do? It's kind of like that, but not so dramatic.
I hate that twitching. I hate it in every show, every movie when they have somebody twitching. It just disturbs me. I don't know why. It just disturbs me.
It's really weird. But yeah, and they're just almost like Wendigos. I think they're the cousins of Wendigos, really. But yeah, if you guys have any great skinwalker stories you want to share with me, or some, you can email me at rumrunner223@gmail.com. I'd love to hear them. And I will probably read one or two on Dave's channel again once he has me back. And I'd love to share the experience.
Oh, you'll be back. You'll be back, Mr. Black. Don't worry about that. On that note, tomorrow will be I used to be a YouTuber finale for all those who followed my creepypasta that I had written, which DeamonBlack has a very small part, in which he does a damn good job on it. But we're going to end this episode of Unknown Territory mini-sode here.
No, I'm joking.
Have any parting words there, Damon?
No, actually, it's been a pleasure to be on your show again. I enjoy it thoroughly.
It's always a pleasure to have you on.
It's always nice to talk about weird topics, especially about stuff that's happened with us when we were, in our teens. But yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. This is the man they call Dave, Unknown Territory first mini-sode. And you will get more content next weekend. I'm not going to promise what it is because I don't know yet, but you're going to get another show. That's a guarantee. Whether it just be me or I get DeamonBlack on, who knows? Who knows who's going to be the guest?
Or Kevy Kev, if he decides to appear.
Yeah, we'll see about that. You never know. All right, ladies and gents, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you got any stories you want to send us, go to unknownterritory@yahoo.com. Send it to us. We will be glad to read it on the air, talk about it, and sooner or later, we're going to be getting in open caller lines for any of you people that want to talk to us directly.
Can I call you randomly?
No.
Damn it.
Talk to you soon, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye, folks.
Hey, you Jojo, yeah, I know your name. Thought I saw you jump the Utah train, but I could not say,